Hello, podcast friends, and welcome to the Prime Knowledge Podcast. All details about today's episode can be found in the show notes below. And on today's podcast, we will be interviewing Harry Spinks. Harry is a farrier, a business owner, a speaker, and a family man. In the talk today, he's going to be talking about struggling at school through to growing a successful farrier business. He's going to talk to you about future plans, cash flow, and family and work-life balance. All right, hi Harry, great to have you here. So can you tell me about your background, how you got started in business, and just a little bit about you for our audience today?
Of course, and thank you very much for having me. So I run a successful farrier practice, and for the audience that don't know, a farrier is somebody that puts shoes on horses' feet and trims horses' feet and all that jazz. And I'm down in Dorset. We have been going now for, I've been qualified now as a farrier for 9 years, so I've been self-employed or running my business for 7.5, 8 years, I think now. And it wasn't always a route I was going to take because I was offered employment by my old employer to stay on with him, but we decided to move down to Dorset, so I ended up going self-employed, and that's where it all started. I think for me, I was probably always quote unquote destined to be self-employed in that entrepreneurial self-employed role, because I wasn't very good at school, and my dad was made redundant 3 times and ran his own, and then started a very successful fire safety business, and I was used to seeing that and used to seeing him and what that brought him in regards to like family life and things like that, and I couldn't run my life if I was being employed now. So yeah, it all started because I was a farrier and I needed to move for family reasons, and then it's spiraled since then, really.
So why farrier? Why is that even a word? Farrier?
Yeah, farrier. If you add enough R's, I's, and Y's into it, it works. An ex-girlfriend suggested to me, and I took her up on the offer. Is the honest answer. I did some work experience with somebody that lived opposite us. So I was living with, she was called Layla down in Heathfield, living with Layla at the time, and then somebody opposite us was a farrier. I did some work experience with him, and then I didn't think anything else of it. I was doing outdoor education, so like rock climbing, abseiling, throwing children off high things for a living, that type of thing, and I loved it and it was great, but it never paid the bills. It was a lifestyle, and it was a brilliant lifestyle, and the people I worked with were great, but it wasn't going to make you a millionaire. I mean, you could argue that farrier is not going to make you a millionaire either, but you know, that's by the by. It's never going to give you the type of life that you'd want, and for most people anyway, that stability and that paycheck where it's great because it can travel you around and you're doing really cool things and you're outside all day every day having fun essentially. But yeah, so I rang up another farrier. I was in between jobs and I was working at a leisure centre. Somebody said they had a horse. I rang up their farrier, a guy called Jimmy Cooper, and at the same time I rang a mate of mine up called Duncan Riley down in East Sussex, and I ended up doing 4 months worth of work experience with them. And then I went to college and I just really enjoyed it. And it's a job where you can see immediate results and you can really help the equine, the horse or the donkey. But yeah, you can really help that animal by changing something, and an hour and a half later they'll walk out and they'll be in a better place.
Amazing. So it always makes me laugh when I think of you. I think the first time we ever met, you introduced yourself as Harry, the man that touches horses.
Yeah, exactly.
Which at the time definitely needed explaining the first time I'm meeting you, but I know that this is something you do quite often, see how uncomfortable you can make people feel. But yeah, it's great to know kind of how you went on that journey. And I think quite often as entrepreneurial people, we kind of just find our way into something.
Yeah.
And the running the business is really part of that. You just kind of find a track to find a business that fits you, rather than just being, oh, this is my industry and this is where I'm going. And that's been the same for me. Like, I'm in property now, but that was never the plan 10 or 15 years ago when I first got into business generally. So I know that you've got a young family, same as I do. So what are the sort of things that you do to maintain a positive mindset in business and the work-life balance with your family? What are the sort of things that you have in place?
Is there a work-life balance? I think it all rolls into one. So, like, you know, we're both the same. Emily works with our business now, and she's done that for over a year. And that was because she was working for Screwfix in their head office at the time. Our eldest, was going to school. We then went, well, how are we going to manage this? Because you've got 1 day out of 3 where you've got to drive to Yeovil, which is an hour away at the best of times. So we can just about manage it if you come into the business. And at the time, we were kind of on a little mini expansion, I suppose, which is progressing. But yeah, so Emily came into the business and she did all my office stuff, which then meant that when I got home at night, I wasn't going, I've got about 10 million things to do before I even think about seeing the kids. So that's really helped. So actually I can get home at whatever time I get home. We do dinner, and I try, when I get home, I do occasionally sit in front of a laptop and do little bits, but I try and wait until they're in bed before I do anything. So I will, it depends what I'm doing, depends where I am, it depends where the rest of the team is during that day. But I tend to do most of my work on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or most of my shoeing, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I end up getting home. I might do a little bit, I might not, but I try and mentally book out to those times where I am sitting there with the girls. We can have dinner, you can do homework, you can argue about iPad time, all that stuff. Wednesday and a Friday I do scouts as well, so I'm a scout leader, which is it's fun, I enjoy it, but that again takes away from your family time. So it's just trying to I find when I'm with the girls, I try and leave my phone on the side. I try not to look at my phone, because then if I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not engaging with the 10 million messages you got on your social media. You're not looking at emails. You can plan things, but if you're writing it down and you're planning it, that's different to sitting there like this, and you can be a bit more engaged with them. It's hard at the end of the day. I've just started journaling because I go to bed at 12, because I'm like trying to reorganize my headspace so that I can speak to Emily about what's going on in here, which is like a complete continual. I don't know, speaking to you, it's the same as you, like it's a complete continual, like this is what we need to do, this is where we need to be, this is where I want us to be, this is our 3-month plan, this is our year plan. I'm looking at all my mates and they're like doing really well, and you're like, well, do I emulate this? If I emulate that, will it work for my audience? Will it work for my business? And all of this is constantly going around your head, and it never stops. Even when you're with the kids, it never stops, which is why I don't think there's a work-life balance. I just think you have to fit. Everything is part of your life, and it all just has to somehow work. Emily and I work quite well together because she tells me that I'm a dick sometimes, and I take that, but we don't really argue. And we make sure we have time together, we have time as a family, and then we have time apart. So this weekend she's away, which is great, because I get to spend 2 days with the girls, which will be hard, because, my safety blanket of a wife that knows where everything is not there. But it also means that we can connect, just the two of us, and it's not that mother-daughter bond, it's that father being there and the only person that's present in their life at that period of time. So
That's amazing. I think, excuse me, like I resonate with a lot of what you say there, and I think I couldn't agree more with the idea of work-life balance. Some days it's really balanced, some days it's not.
No.
So yesterday I travelled a lot. I got back late. The kids were already in bed. I missed all that. But then today I got out with the kids and I took them to school. So I could agree with you. The balance isn't always there. It's just a case of on a day-to-day basis working on what's your priorities with the business, but also being present.
I think if you're with the kids, you've got to be present with the kids so they know that is their time with you. And it's difficult, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm certainly not, and I certainly fail in that regard on probably a regular basis. But if I'm with them, then that should be their time. If I'm locked up in the office, if the door's shut, then I am working, unless I hear a screech, and then I'm probably not working anymore, and probably, dealing with whatever arguments occurred. But I won't be working if Emily's not there, if that makes sense. So it's just making it all work. And when you've got 200 things going on in your head, and you've got friends, and your friendship group has got 200 things going on in their head, and you've all got WhatsApp messages going between each other, going, well, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. How do you think I should do that? Does anybody know people like this? You can't switch off from that, but you can try and take a back seat and then dump your ideas at night into a journal, which I've just started doing, which has really helped. And yeah, that's how I try and manage that balance. I don't think there is a work-life balance. I think there is if you work for Tesco's or you work for a company and you're employed and you're really happy, and there's nothing wrong with being employed and in that position, because actually, that you get home from work and every month you're getting your paycheck, and you know what your paycheck is after tax, and then that's what you've got to spend, rather than you and me that are going, right, well, this month we want to do this with the business, so actually that means that, all right, I'm probably not going to be paid as much as the guys that are subcontracting for me for the next 6 months, because I want to reinvest that back into whatever project we've got on, be it in farrier or looking at property or potentially developing an app and various other things like that. And you're like, well, this is going to cost me X amount of hundreds of thousands of millions of pounds. And then so you're like, well, for that to happen or for us as a family and us as a business to progress to where we want our businesses to be, and more importantly, support the horses and the people that we want to be supporting, which is our community, you have to take some form of payment out. You have to take a cut out of that, as in, you can't get to where it's pain. There's pain, isn't there? I don't know where the question was. I've rambled, but there's the pain involved in that means that you've got to be happy with the fact that you've got 200 million things going on in your head. And if you're not happy with that and that really worries you, then that's where being employed is really good. And you get home and then you go, well, I've got 12 hours to spend sleeping and with my kids now. And then I've got a weekend to spend sleeping and with my kids.
Yeah, I think it's, I think a lot of people, excuse me, don't reflect inwardly on what it is they really want. They don't establish the kind of life they want, how they want to work for their days, whether they want to be employed or self-employed. They're just like, well, someone else has got something that I want and I want that thing. And it's not actually going, well, actually, what do I want? Because ultimately, if you don't know what you want, then it's very difficult to plan your life. I am not employable. I don't work very well in that kind of environment. And I realised quite early on that I enjoy this process. And as part of that, you get the reward and you get the risk that goes with it. So you have to kind of balance two things off. And I know I like the journaling. I think that's a great idea, a way of, because I'm the same, I find it quite difficult to turn the mind off sometimes.
Yeah.
And I do that thing of going, well, I want to have quality time with the kids, but then I've got these things that I never got done today. I got too busy and I didn't complete my to-do list. And then you're thinking about this whilst you're with them. And like you say, it's so hard sometimes to be present. So I'm the same as you. It's a inward battle all the time to make sure I'm present for them. I know you said about before that you've got like a 2-hour window where you don't do any work in that 2-hour window before bed. Is that something that you're still doing to try and shut the mind off, or are you finding that the journaling's working better for that?
I've only started the journaling in the last week. Excuse me. So I think that has helped. I've got to since I saw you last, like we've ramped up everything, and that has not helped my sleep. It's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. Ideally, with sleep, I would work until 11. I'd go to bed at midnight. I'd wake up at about 8:30, 9. I'd then do my work. I'd then have dinner, probably throw a nap in because I love a nap. And then I'd do some more work. But my life doesn't work like that. So I end up working and staying up till late, 10:30ish. And then I have to try and switch off. And I found that, and this is really hard to do, is to put your device down and read. But if I watch TikToks or YouTube videos until, like, as my switch off time, I have a rubbish night's sleep. Whereas if I read a book and then go to bed, ideally when I'm lying in bed, I will have a great night's sleep. So it's that mental capacity to go, actually, I'm not going to stay lying on the sofa. Or if I am lying on the sofa, I'm going to read a book that's not a business book. And it's probably like a Terry Pratchett or, something that is, I love fantasy and I love like historical dramas and things like that. So like reading something like that rather than a businessy book, which are great, but they will keep your mind engaged rather than thinking about something else. I don't have my phone in the bedroom, and that's really helped because when you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't go, oh, I'm just going to look at Instagram quickly, and then an hour later you're like, you've replied to all these comments and your brain's awake because it's been looking at this blue screen all the time that you shouldn't be looking at anyway. But yeah, over the last week the journaling has helped as a bit of a brain dump, and it's something to reflect upon as well. I think that's really important. And I think I've got things that I haven't achieved this year because I haven't been able to reflect upon them and haven't gone, I can't go back in time and remember what I said I was going to do because I haven't written it down, or I have written it down, but it's been in the notes in my phone and they get lost, or I've spoken to somebody about it and they're like, oh, how's that going? And you're like, well, I can't even remember I said that to you. So, yeah.
Yeah, having a way to organise your thoughts is great. I'm not journaling at the moment, and I've gone through processes of time where I have and I haven't. I always feel better doing it, but then also trying to get that into a kind of practical way of doing it before bed or when you finish working for the day or whatever. Just trying to get it in that routine for me. You were sharing in there that you've just sort of amped up your business and you're doing more now. So what's the kind of big things that you're working on currently?
So our aim over the next year or so is to have quality hoof care providers from the tip of the country to the bottom of the country, because I get a lot of messages of going, oh, I don't know who to use, blah, blah, blah. And actually, there's a lot of really good people out there, but they haven't got a presence. So we are looking at providing that. We're looking at, so you could ring us up and go, oh, I'm in Sussex and I need a farrier. And we go, yeah, that's not a problem. We'll book you in with one of our guys down in Sussex. Or like, don't know whether it's going to be a franchisee or based on like a commission basis, or we haven't got that far down the road yet. But my aim is to have hoof care that's accessible, good quality hoof care that you can depend upon throughout the country, and also to empower farriers to be earning the money that they're actually deserve to be earned. You get a lot of farriers most farriers are self-employed because you're taught that you're going to be self-employed through college, but you're not really taught how you can be self-employed. And as I said earlier, like a lot of people think they want to be self-employed, but actually are rubbish at being self-employed or rubbish at being a director of a business. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in any way, but I speak to a lot of people that are like, oh, I hate running a diary, or I hate it when the phone goes off, or I hate having to fix the problems, or this person owes me money, how do I deal with that? And actually, rather than them dealing with that, we can go, right, you can do the job that you love. Over the next 3 years, you'll be paid more than you are being paid at the moment, because we can make sure you're being paid the rate that you deserve to be paid by accessing our network, and we can do it through that. And because you're being paid more, you can spend more time with the horse, which means you can do a better job on the horse as an entity, and you can spend time like maybe doing some more lecturing or doing the things that will then re-promote the business, our business, but also promote you as a brand and set you up so that you can access social media, and which means that you can then promote more, which then means you can earn more commissions and things like that. And I think it's about empowering the farrier so they can do the best job that they can on the horse. And that is, within our industry, I feel that's lacking because it's not really spoken about, and it's not really, nobody does business. It's still an industry where you get, okay, if I pay you in cash, do I get it cheaper? Or, oh, I don't want to pay the VAT. Can I just give you, I've got 100 quid here, will you take that? You're like, well, no. Or my last farrier didn't charge me that. You're like, well, yeah, but your horse was lame. So what do you want?
Yeah, that
you can't have everything.
That is still in. I don't think.
I know it's in everything, isn't it? But it's very prevalent in the equine industry, and cash changes hands like it's going out of fashion. And the world isn't revolving around cash. I can't pay my mortgage in cash. You know, your mortgage has gone up 50%. You're well aware of that. I can't. My suppliers would take cash, but if the HMRC looked into me and they rang up my supplier and they went, how often has Harry Spinks' company been shopping with you? And they go, well, his shoeing bill last year was, what, 15 grand? Something like that? 20 grand? I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, okay, cool. He didn't put that through his books. It's not rocket science. You know, at some point they're going to need to recoup some money, and that's going to come sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it's such a short-term look at the business as a whole.
Yeah.
And you get it in all industries, and you'll get it everywhere you go. I used to work in garden fencing supplies, and that's like a building type trade, and that was the same. Good price for cash? Like, nope. If anything, I'm going to charge you more for cash.
Yeah, because
and that's what you got. If I'm going to actually pay it into the bank, I'm going to pay more to pay it into the bank. So what I started doing was just going, because when we took the business on, it was like, yeah, everyone paid cash. It was all going under the table. It was all dodgy. And we went in and went, no, we've got a card machine, we've got BACS information. That's how we want you to pay. And if you want to pay us cash, that's fine, but we're going to put a surcharge on it.
Yeah.
Because the bank charges us more because we pay it in. And people are like, what? What are you doing that for? But over a 2-3 year period, we suddenly got barely any cash through the business, and that was so much better for us from a point of view. It's like all my suppliers have been paid on bank transfer, most of my customers paying bank transfer. It's all going through, and it's so much easier to manage that whole system.
And as soon as you have staff, they don't want cash, not anymore. So like our subcontractors, they get paid by BACS. So why and I pay myself online. And yeah, it's nice to say, or I've got this amount of money, but what are you going to do with it? If you want to buy a new house, you then got to launder it back through your own business, which means that you lose money, and every pound that's sitting under your bed is losing money anyway because it's not working. And the only way you can make money work is by reinvesting it into something else, be it, you know, stocks and shares ISA, property, some form of angel investment, etc., etc. So assets are great. Cash is a bit, I'm not saying cash isn't great, because at least if somebody says, oh, look, I want to pay you in cash, I have the cash here, and you go, cool, it's this much, and they go, brilliant, there's the cash, you've got it. You don't have to chase it afterwards. But on the flip side, I don't want cash in my back pocket because I can't do anything with cash. I can't, as I said, I can't reinvest that cash into something else. I can't buy anything for the business in cash because I went up to some of my suppliers yesterday, but I don't see them. I speak to Mike on the phone all the time, but I don't actually see him because he's 2.5 hours north of me. I can't go, oh, Mike, I'm going to come up and I've got 15 grand's worth of cash to give you. What's he going to do with that? Because he's going to have to put it back through his business.
And at a certain point, you have to tell, I can't remember what the numbers are, but that for like anti-laundering purposes, if it goes over a certain amount, they need to then It's £5. There you go. I didn't even know, but then they want to know where it's come from. So it's like it just doesn't work. I think, and I think it's you still get it quite often. I'm quite happy that I'm now running a Airbnb business where it's basically an e-commerce business and people pay through online means, and I don't even speak to somebody in person anymore to go through that process. Have you ever tried taking card payments or something like that whilst you're there?
So I have, but the problem that we have is because a lot of the places are in the middle of nowhere, signal's a bit iffy. So we have got a card machine, but so what we use QuickBooks, and then we've got Back's details on there, and we've got PayPal payment on there, because that means that people sign up to it and we get payment 4 days later, which would be a lot better than not. So most people, you can find most people don't not pay you. Most people don't pay you because they do what I do, which is go, oh, I've looked at that as an email. I'm in the middle of something at the moment. I'll do that later. And then they forget. With Go Cardless, it just means that we can send the invoice out. They check the invoice and then they know, and we know that 4 days later it's coming out their bank account. And they'll take a cut of that. But actually that's fine because that cut saves Emily chasing people, which frees her day up to do other things that aren't necessarily farrier related, but we need to get them done. Be it working out the GDV on something, or be it talking to somebody about an employment contract, or be it picking the kids up from school and taking them to swimming.
Yeah, so what was that called again? Go
Cardless.
Go Cardless. That sounds brilliant, actually, because the cash flow can be so difficult when you're always being paid in arrears.
Yeah.
You give a service and then some people will get their phone out and backs it straight into your account right then and there. And then other people, like you say, will have a think, well, I'll just wait a week. I always wait a bit, always wait a little bit. Or they'll go, or they'll say things like, oh, I thought your terms were 30 days. And it's like, it doesn't say that on my invoice at all. And I think it's good to just go have a system where at the front end it's automated and this is the system, this is how it works. And
so we have various accounts that, some clients have a lot of horses, or some clients, because of the way their accounting works, pay monthly. And that's fine. As long as people go, this is, look, I'm really sorry, but this is how we work. We pay monthly. Do you mind? I will go, that's fine. We'll bill them monthly. We get paid monthly. I know exactly what's happening there. We've got a couple of clients that will pay us a fixed amount monthly, and then Emily will check it every quarter and go, do we need to up it? Do we need to leave it alone? Do we need to bring it down again? And that's also fine. What annoys me, and it annoys the rest of the world in whatever industry you're in, is if somebody's got a problem, and we will always help our clients, because sometimes their horse needs a lot of work doing to it, especially if they've had an injury with that horse. And you have to do something really complicated that takes a long time and involves a lot of expensive products. And if they turn around to me and they go, look, I'm really sorry, I know this is going to be expensive, can I split the payments out? Every time we will go, yeah, we'll work out a payment plan that works for you. That's fine, because I don't want people to feel that they can't have the best quality of care for their horses. However, on the flip side, if somebody doesn't tell us they're having a problem, and then we have to chase them for money, that's where we get annoyed. Because actually all it takes is for them to pick up a phone and send a WhatsApp message and go, I'm struggling here, can you help? And we will go every time, yeah, because we want to help the horse. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to get paid because I need to pay for my kids to, have Christmas or have a swimming lesson or eat dinner, put a roof over their head. Like
minor stuff.
Put some clothes on their back. You know what I mean? Maybe pay for the tap water to be turned on or off. But if people communicate then that's fine. It's when people don't communicate, and then you have a cash flow problem, and then you chase them, and then at some point they go, and then at some point they break because you say you're not going to do any more work for them, or they don't break and they just like try and dip off the radar, and then you've got a court case on your hand, and you're like, why are you doing this when all it would have taken was I'm really sorry. Can we sort something out?
I think that's just, some of that is just being British. Just going, if I ignore it long enough, it'll just go away.
Yeah, 100%.
Going, if I just have one difficult conversation, and that works kind of into business as well. I've done it a few times where you avoid that difficult conversation because you think it's going to be difficult.
Oh, yeah,
whereas
actually done that.
Avoiding it is worse than having the difficult conversation and then it being solved. And I've spent months, sometimes years, not dealing with a problem.
Yeah.
Then dealing with it eventually because it gets so bad I have to, and actually realising that I just spent a year in this worried state and I didn't have to do that. So I think, it's kind of the same thing. It's like just burying your head in sand and hoping it goes away. So that's also some really great bits of advice in there. I think it's fascinating to see how business is business at the end of the day. Like, and it depends. It doesn't matter what the business is. The fundamentals are all the same. Like cash flow is king. You know, how we invoice and how we deal with customers is the same. It's just a different business.
Yeah.
And you are the only farrier I know, so it's quite interesting to see how you run your business.
I'll take that.
Yeah. You are the special one.
Special somewhere.
So, on a day-to-day basis, do you have any morning routines, non-negotiables, anything that you feel that's really important to you that keeps you, what's the right word, kind of, effective within your working life? Is there anything that's...
Not at the moment. I did. And before we were expanding, as we are now, my non-negotiables were Monday morning, I had a couple of catch-up sessions, one of which was with yourself. And actually, that kind of set me up for the week and meant I could discuss some problems with the various other people. But because we're expanding now, I'm doing a bit more on the shoeing side of it again, which has meant that I have to be more flexible within my days. We're trying to write back in some more non-negotiables back into my diary because I think it is important. But at the moment, no. I think one of them now is going to be journaling every night. I think that's probably going to be a non-negotiable, or certainly when I've got a lot of information going through my head, is to make sure I write that down before I go to bed, because I think that's really important. But no, not at the moment, which is slightly disappointing to myself, but it's something that I'm working on. And I know a lot of people that do, like, a lot of people that I know have your ice bath and then, you do your workout and then you start your day. But I hate early mornings. I've tried. Like, I got up at 4:30 this morning and I was fine. It's because my head was buzzing. But if I get up at 5 every morning, it takes me like 4 hours to get going. And like your 40 coffees down before you even start the day. I just can't do it. But as I said, I'm a nighttime person. I can quite happily work through until midnight and then get up late.
The exact opposite to me.
Yeah.
I'm good in the mornings.
Emily's great. Emily's great in the morning. She's in the gym at like 6 o'clock, and I'm like lying there on the sofa with the dog that's tried to like cuddle into you, going, go away. And some child wakes up. Elsie like starts screeching at you, and you're like, oh, go away, Elsie. Yeah. I just want to go back to bed. But yeah, no, not at the moment. But it's something that I'm working on because I think it is important to have. As I said, like with the kids, if I'm with the kids, I try not to have my phone out because that's really important that you're spending time directly with them. And what we're looking at building in is, so both children go to Pony Club now on a Monday afternoon. So I think that's not going to be a non-negotiable, but that's going to be something that I make a concerted effort to turn up to weekly. A, so they're not in bed too late, but B, because I quite like seeing the kids and I quite like them. Got a little naughty pony called Del Boy, and I quite like watching them ride, and they're both doing well on it, and that gives me joy, so that's important. I suppose Scouts is probably a non-negotiable because it's not very often that I miss that because I enjoy that, but that's very time consuming, and that is potentially going to have to be rethought through at some point, just because you can't do everything. But yeah, only really that. And as I said, the journaling now going forward, that's pretty much going to be a non-negotiable, just so I can make sure I haven't got too much stuff going through my head so I can have a decent night's sleep.
Yeah, I think for me, the non-negotiable was always flexible.
Yeah.
So I would say it's better for me if I do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
So for me, exercise is quite a big thing. I exercise typically every day I'm able to.
Mhm.
I've just shown Harry in my home gym and I'm training there quite often. And by being at home, it makes it easier. But at the same time, I was traveling a lot yesterday. So I didn't have time.
Yeah.
And it just goes. And I think I've got better at going. Sometimes it can't always be there. I can't get up at stupid o'clock in the morning and get that sort of stuff in. So it's having it there as a template, but also knowing it could be flexible kind of works quite well for me. So yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure out what it is I want on a day-to-day basis, how I want my days to look like. So it sounds like you're sort of in the same place as me in a way of just kind of figuring it out for yourself and working out what's going to work and trying to create as much balance as possible within the parameters of work and family and stuff.
I think what I need to fit into my life is an extra 24 hours in a day to get everything done. But the only way I can do that is by implementing other things so that we can support other people to work with us or for us, so that I can then fit more time in my day so that we can then get everything else that we want to achieve to help the equine world and farriers and physios and vets and other people. And I need time to do that, but that time can't be shoeing horses. It has to be mental time for myself, and it also has to be time where I can sit in front of a computer with my glasses on and actually like do some work and try and look clever for a little bit, because you can't run a business when you're in it. You've got to take a step outside of it to see the bigger picture to then run it. So if Emily manages our diary now, I still kind of book everybody in, but she manages it on a day-to-day basis, and that's really helpful. But if I'm out shoeing all day, then she's got loads of questions to fire at me. Those questions have to be dealt with either on the hoof, every pun intended, or when I get home and once the kids are in bed. So it's hard, and it's fitting in. For me, it's trying to fit in time with the kids, time with my wife, stuff I want to do, and then fitting that around the mental capacity to run a small business, start another business, because we're looking at starting an education business next year. Look at property and land deals, because we want to start investing in some land and get some yards going and bits and bobs as well. And it's having the time to do that, to then support those projects and everybody that needs to be involved with those projects. And you can't do that if you're bent over shoeing horses, because that's a lot of brain capacity going on there, let alone physical capacity. And being on the phone when you're working with somebody else is really rude. And if you're at a client's, occasionally you can do it, but if I'm working with you and suddenly my phone rings and I'm on that for an hour, it's not a great look, is it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think it's the battle for a lot of people. It's getting you off the tools to work on your business, not in your business. And it's a process I went through in my previous business. And then when I came to this business, I was like, I don't want to be hands-on.
Yeah.
I could set up properties, I could paint them, I could do all the flat pack furniture for all my properties, I could do all that sort of stuff. And it's like, I just don't want to do that.
No.
It doesn't help us. It doesn't fulfill me. It's not what I want to be doing. But it is hard, because ultimately that job will pay you. You're going to shoe a horse, it's going to bill this amount of money, and it brings into business. Whereas in your office working is the bigger picture. It could work to bring people in or bring in more work so you can bring in more staff, but it's not direct income right now.
No, and
that's what's difficult about it.
And that's the hard bit, is it's getting the balance between the direct income, which you need to keep shit on the road, essentially, quite literally, and having enough time to spend on the bigger picture, and that's where the work-life balance doesn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll go good book for this. Have you read The E-Myth Revisited?
I haven't, but I have literally downloaded it this morning while I was doing a bit of work, and it's on the list to listen to on the way home.
One of my favourites. I've read it a few times.
Yeah.
It's probably the very first book I read when I got into business.
Yeah.
And it's it's sort of told in kind of a story style.
Oh, okay.
Talking through somebody in a business and sort of their struggles to... it's like a pie shop or a cake shop or something, and it's just talking about how...
Oh, yeah. I lie. I started it.
Yeah.
I started reading it on a plane when I was jet setting around Europe earlier on this year. So I started listening to it, reading it on the plane, and then I think I left it in a hotel room or something. So yeah, it's on. I have downloaded it, so I'm going to start listening to it on the way home.
Yeah, really good place to start. So on the back of that, perfect opportunity to ask you. I like to ask everyone about book recommendations. Books have been massive for me in my business journey and self-development journey. Is there any books that you've either read that you like to recommend a lot, or books that you're reading at the moment that you're finding really interesting?
I've just finished The Richest Man in Babylon. I just finished this. I listen to a lot of business books. I don't read them because I read before bed, and I don't want to be, as I said earlier, I don't want to be switched on before bed. But I read The Richest Man in Babylon. That was really interesting. Don't necessarily... I just think it's very good. Like, what they preach is 70% for yourself, 20% for your debts, and 10% to save. And I think that's probably for most people is a very good way of getting out of debt and actually starting to save some money. My go-to book, if anybody ever asks me to recommend them a book to start a journey, is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that's probably everybody's, like, that was the first book I ever read. I was recommended it by a mate of mine when I first started looking into redeveloping and like actually getting a clearer focus on what I wanted out of life. So yeah, they'd probably be the two at the moment. There's some really great books out there. Like, I think whatever you read, you will gain something from it, and whoever you're around, you'll gain something from them. So even if it's how not to do something, I'm going to start reading some autobiographies. Like, I want to read the Trump one. I don't agree with I don't really necessarily agree with his political views, and that's neither here nor there, but he's done a lot of things over his life, and I think that'd be quite interesting to read. I'm going to get around to reading the Warren Buffett one at some point, because again, that'd be quite interesting.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's book's really good as well.
I've heard that.
Biography.
Yeah.
I've read that a couple of times as well. That's really good because he's actually made a lot of money from property, which is obviously the field that I'm in, so that's quite interesting as well. But you would know him as this successful movie star and the governor and all this other stuff, bodybuilder obviously, and then but actually on the back of all of that, he had a property investment business that was making enough money for him in his early days as an actor to not have to take every single acting role that was available because he had an income.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm only going to do the roles that get me to the goal, which is I want to be the leading man, the superhero, the top guy. And if that role isn't that, I'm not doing it because I can earn money. Whereas other actors are like, I need to make money, so I'm going to take any role that's available.
And I think that's a really good look at making sure that you're reinvesting into assets, which I haven't done through the majority of my life so far, but reinvesting into assets rather than going out in the razzle-dazzle or going
liabilities as a rich dad, poor dad.
Or liability, yeah, any form of liability.
Yeah.
And everybody likes to have a brand spanking new car or a new horse box or a new this or a new that, but actually, is it going to get you where you want to get to, yes or no? And if it's a no, then you've got to go, do I need it or do I not need it?
I've always wanted a new horse box, so yeah, that's definitely...
Exactly. I know somebody that could hook you up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of horses at all, so, they're my favourite creature.
So there's
The horse box sounds...
There's a lot of them that are worth more than my house.
Yeah, probably. Probably lots of them and my house. So,
yeah.
I think we've covered most of the things that I want to talk about today, so I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for coming to the studio here and sitting down with me and having a great conversation. It's been a pleasure.
Not at all. It's been grand.
We Speak soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's good
you.
to see you. Cheers, Andy.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please follow on Apple and Spotify. All details of today's episode can be found in the show notes below. For more info and content, check out our Facebook page. Thank you and goodbye.